Welcome to Mississippi History from a Christian Perspective. I'm your host, Tracy Robinson, and this is Lesson 3. In this lesson, we'll discuss new efforts by France and the area when under the English rule. Bienville had served as governor during the Mississippi Bubble venture, and now he was ready to do some organizing of his own. He organized the territory in 1723 into 3 districts. The districts were the Biloxi, the Natchez, and the Yazoo districts. The new districts still lacked settlers, however, and a campaign was introduced in France to encourage people to move to the New World with ridiculous stories of magnificent wealth to be found in Louisiana. This failed to convince the citizens, and so the French government resorted to some really desperate measures. Unemployed people were picked up off the street, many children were taken from orphanages, and others were just simply kidnapped. Prisoners were removed from their shackles, and the insane taken from their asylums to be sent to settle the colony. And we wonder about New Orleans. If the colony did not prosper as much as the French investors would have liked, it grew a lot faster than the Indians did. Bienville, who got along well with the Indians, had been removed from office again and was in France at the time. The Natchez were the first to attack. Most of the male population of Fort Rosalie was killed, and around 250 women and children were taken prisoner. The other tribes followed suit and attacked in other areas. When the news of the Natchez attack reached New Orleans, French troops were sent out in retaliation. By 1732, the Natchez were almost decimated by the French. The Natchez that were captured were sold into slavery, and those that escaped joined other tribes like the Chickasaw. Bienville was returned to his post, and he believed most of the Indian trouble was being caused by English influence in the Chickasaw tribe, and he demanded from the Chickasaw that they surrender all of the Natchez with them. When they refused, he had a reason to go to war. Aided by a French expeditionary force in the charge of Pierre d'Artaguet, Bienville had a plan for a pincer attack on the Indians, where his group of troops would come from one direction and d'Artaguet's group would come from another direction and crush the Indians in the middle. However, whether the Indians knew it or not, they foiled his plan by attacking d'Artaguet's troops first. Later, Bienville would return to renew the war with the Chickasaw, but the Chickasaw had already agreed to make peace with the French by that time, and he lost his opportunity for retaliation. In 1756, France went to war with England. This war weakened France so much that she secretly gave New Orleans and the area west of the Mississippi River to Spain, who was also her ally in the war. This is what eventually ended the French control of the lower Mississippi Valley. After France's defeat at the hand of the English, England gained all of the Louisiana territory east of the Mississippi except New Orleans. Spain also gave its province of Florida to the English. The English called this territory, consisting mostly of Mississippi and Alabama, West Florida. With this, England controlled most of the settled area from the eastern seaboard all the way to the Mississippi River. Under English rule, the capital was Pensacola. This was disappointing to the residents because they wanted something closer. West Florida was also displeased because under British rule, they didn't enjoy the freedom and self-government that the other 13 English colonies on the East Coast had. The governors of the outlying territories could do pretty much what they pleased. Consequently, it was very seldom that an assembly was called to meet to discuss any of these problems. In spite of these disagreeable circumstances, the southern colonies had begun to grow, and they grew a lot. Amos Ogden, A British Navy captain settled in the Natchez area on a land grant given to him by the British government. He came with two other men, Richard and Samuel Swayze. They settled on the Homachito River and named their settlement Kingston. Samuel Swayze was a pastor in the Congregational Church, and Kingston became the location of the first known Protestant church in Mississippi. Once the territory fell into the hands of the Spanish, though, Reverend Swayze had found it necessary to hide himself and his Bible in a hollow sycamore tree. Of all the 16 British colonies in the New World, only 13 of them participated in the War for Independence against Great Britain. West Florida, East Florida, and Canada all remain loyal to the British Crown. That means that back in the day, Mississippi was still under British rule and was not part of the original Revolutionary War. The first and only attack on British West Florida came in 1778, and that was by James Willing. He was an American Army captain. He was actually supposed to encourage settlers to side with the American forces and get them to move to the 13 colonies that had gained their independence. His attacks on local loyalists, however, had the opposite effect, and eventually Willing was defeated. In the eastern portion of the Florida Territory, Britain was not so fortunate. Spain declared war on Great Britain in 1779. The Spanish governor successfully attacked and captured the Florida Territory. This gave Spain control of the Mississippi River and most of the land surrounding it for some time. During the Spanish control of Florida, Protestant church services were forbidden. If you remember, during this time, especially in England, in Europe, and those areas, it was illegal for you to own a Bible. And if you were caught reading it, it was an absolute death sentence. You could be hung, decapitated, or worse. But in 1791, under what appeared to first be a lenient Catholic government, Reverend Richard Curtis Jr. organized the Salem Baptist Church. This was the first Baptist church in what is now Mississippi. The church came under attack from the governor when he learned that the religious fervor of the Baptists was resulting in conversion of the Catholics. He ordered Curtis to stop his work or leave the territory, but Curtis continued to do his work in secret. Of course, the Spanish got wind and they searched the area to locate the pastor and his converts. The congregation begged Curtis to go back to the Carolinas and stay there until it was safe for him to return. Curtis was not the only minister who ran into trouble with the Spanish. Adam Cloud, an Episcopal minister, was captured and sent in chains to New Orleans. Also, the previously mentioned Reverend Swayze of Kingston found this to be a very troublesome time with, hiding in his sycamore tree. Spain continued to encourage settlement of the area, however. Natchez farmers grew tobacco and indigo. Livestock was important in the colony, and the forest generated lots of income. In 1795, a copy of Eli Whitney's Cotton Gin was produced in Natchez. 1 year later, gins were being manufactured in Natchez. Soon, all the planters had their own gins. Cotton was on its way to being the cash crop of the territory by 1797. With the end of the American War for Independence came the Treaty of Paris, bringing peace between the U.S. and Britain. This set the boundary of the United States property at the 31st parallel. But the Spanish did not agree with this boundary. They thought the northern border of West Florida was at the 32nd degree, 28-minute latitude, an area that allowed them to encompass the fertile Natchez area. Because of their strong military presence, they were able to enforce their claim and close the Mississippi River to the United States shipping. Spain thought that this move would lure people to settle in their region rather than in the other colonies. Once the settlers relocated into Spanish territory, however, the Spanish planned on then encouraging rebellion of their colonists against this small nation called the United States. But it didn't work. The government of the United States continued to grow stronger and more stable. In time, the United States was ready to force the issue against Spain. In our next lesson, we'll discuss how America asserted her authority. This has been your host, Tracy Robinson. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to never miss a video. Thanks for learning with me.